Now, let me record straight. There's no argument over the choice between peace and war, but there's only one guaranteed way you can have peace, and you can have it in the next second. Surrender. Admittedly, there's a risk in any course we follow other than this, but every lesson of history tells us that the greater risk lies in appeasement. And this is the specter our well-meaning liberal friends refuse to face, that their policy of accommodation is appeasement. And it gives no choice between peace and war, only between fight or surrender. If we continue to accommodate, continue to back and retreat, eventually we have to face the final demand, the ultimatum. And what then? When Nikita Khrushchev has told his people he knows what our answer will be. He has told them that we're retreating under the pressure of the Cold War, and someday, when the time comes to deliver the final ultimatum, our surrender will be voluntary, because by that time, we will have been weakened from within spiritually, morally, and economically. He believes this because from our side, voice is pleading for peace at any price, rather than death. Or as one commentator put it, he'd rather live on his knees than die on his feet. And is the road to war, because those voices don't speak for the rest of us. You and I know and do not believe that life is so dear and peace so sweet as to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery. If nothing in life is worth dying for, when did this begin? In the face of this enemy? Or should Moses have told the children of Israel to live in slavery under the pharaohs? Have refused the cross? Should the patriots at Concord Bridge have thrown down their guns and refused to fire the shot heard round the world? The martyrs of history were not fools, and our honored dead who gave their lives to stop the advance of the Nazis didn't die in vain. Where then is the road to peace? Well, it's a simple answer after all. You and I have the courage to say to our enemies, there is a price we will not pay, there is a point beyond which they must advance. Winston Churchill said the destiny of man is not measured by material computations. When great forces are on the move in the world, we learn they're spirits, not animals. He said there's something going on in time and space and beyond time and space. Whether we like it or not, it spells duty. You and I have a rendezvous with destiny. We'll preserve for our children this, the last best hope of men on earth, or we'll sentence them to take the last step into 1,000 years of darkness.
Hey, y'all. Welcome back to the Logbook podcast. I'm Dakota. And first of all, let's thank Common Denominator Network and our viewers. And we'd also like to give a shout out to our good buddy Danny Bird over at American Veteran Roofing and Restoration. Get a free roof inspection today. Call the number down below with the ticker, and we'll get you set up. In Veterans Affairs news, conservative activist group Heritage Action is endorsing Republican Senator Tommy Tuberville. Why endorsing him, you ask? Well, his resolution to the Department of Veterans Affairs from providing abortions to retired veterans. Folks, since this whole Roe v. Wade thing happened, the federal government has been trying to push abortions into each and every state, and they've been trying to push it in through Veterans Affairs. What Tommy Tuberville of Alabama is doing is he is trying to block that. Thank you, Senator Tuberville, and God bless you. You have my full support, of course. In other VA news, do y'all remember the Accountability and Whistleblower Protection Act of 2017? Specifically, Section 714, and it was specifically designed on how to allow officials to fire federal employees at a much quicker pace. And fire these federal employees by weakening their civil service protections. Well, according to the Secretary of the VA, they don't use that anymore. The act was used to relieve thousands of VA employees and their jobs during the Trump administration. However, VA Secretary Dennis McDonough told the House Veterans Affairs Committee it wasn't really helping us as much with our workflow as it was getting us before administrative bodies or before federal judges to explain the provision. Um, which is just crazy that you would have to be before all these judges and administrative bodies just to explain yourself. Maybe if y'all did your job, you wouldn't have that going on nearly as often. Representative Mike Bowe of Illinois, the chairman of the House Veterans Affairs Committee, disagreed with McDonough's decision, arguing the VA still needs this tool. The House panel will continue to hold hearings on this Accountability Act abundantly clear so that we can weed out employees who prevent VA from delivering services worthy of our veterans' sacrifice. In military news, the Chinese government officially blamed the negative impact of the U.S. military drills in the Philippines for the tensions in North Korea. North Korea just recently launched a ballistic missile, which actually forced Japan to issue a warning to residents, with warning them to seek shelter. However, the Chinese government should stones since finished their most recent military simulate an attack on Taiwan. Now, just for reference, the U.S. military drills are being taken place in the Philippines, and they involve South Korea, the Philippines, of course, as well as Australia. And they're all just practicing their military drills. And they are 1,700 miles away from North Korea. And China wants to solely blame us for the tensions in North Korea. However, China's closest coast to Taiwan is only 237 miles away, which is about the distance between Houston and Dallas, Texas, just to put that in perspective. News broke that top secret U.S. military documents had been quietly posted in some dark corners of the internet about the status in the war in Ukraine and U.S. efforts to get allies help. The Department of Defense is now in full damage control mode in an urgent effort to identify what's in the documents and whether any more might become public soon. On Thursday, federal authorities in Massachusetts arrested Jack Teixeira, a member of the intelligence wing of the Air National Guard, and said he is suspected of leaking the classified documents. But not all is gloom and doom. In Maine, a lobsterman pulled a massive military rocket while checking lobster 20 miles offshore of the coast of Maine. Captain Cameron Pease, whose lobster boat based out of Cushing, Maine, spotted something tangled in his trolling rope on Monday. Upon closer inspection, he discovered a 150-pound missile that had sunk to the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean. He brought it back to shore and contacted authorities the next day after identifying the missile as a Mark 29 Mod 0, which is commonly used by the U.S. Navy on several platforms. The Maine State Police bomb squad used additional explosives to dispose of said ordnance. Now, I don't know who was running those night offs on that Navy boat, or whose slippery fingers lost it off the side, but I know someone got in trouble. Y'all know how much we love bringing you the news, but today we got something special for you. We wanted to bring back a very special guest that we've had on the show previously. Y'all to reintroduce to you Mr. Curtis Crawford.
How you doing, Dakota? Glad to be with you.
Good, Curtis. How are you?
Hanging in there.
Fantastic. Just want to remind all of our guests that Curtis Crawford is the administrator of the Facebook page Children of Camp Lejune. And what Curtis is out here fighting is the toxic exposure that reservists saw at Camp Lejune, yet they are not getting medical benefits from the VA because they are reservists. Is that right, Curtis?
Yes, that's right. It's catch-22, and it seems like we can't even get in to take a toxic exposure screening.
Exactly. Well, I just recently listened to Brian Talley's podcast featuring Ken King, and Ken King is one of these people that were at Camp Lejune that has toxic exposure, and he is fighting this tooth and nail, and he goes into great detail. If y'all get a chance to listen, go to Brian Talley's podcast. I think it's episode 139. Attorney Ken King, and he goes into lavish detail about what happened at Camp Lejune, how the water got toxic, got exposed to toxins, and how it is affecting the people who served, as well as their families who were with them at Camp Lejune. Now you're a very special case, Curtis, because again, you're not getting this PACT Act is not affecting you because it makes no mention of reservists in the PACT Act at all. Am I correct in saying that?
Well, no, it does mention reservists in the PACT Act, but the particular set of reservists they're talking about are just those who were there for training. They're not included in. If you were a reservist that was deployed for 6 months, or you had 24 months of active duty, you're in the VA. But there's just a small segment of us that can't get in the VA because we weren't activated for duty. We were just there during peace times and did all of our service at home. Many of these veterans have something that's going along with Camp Lejune, and that's neurobehavioral effects. And the VA doesn't even follow their own clinical guidance on this. But the problem there for a reservist, if you can't get into the system for them to look at your records, how do you get into the system?
Exactly. And can you describe any of these neurobehavioral effects that people
Well,
are
the neurobehavioral, they're talking a lot about and especially in algorithm B, for neurobehavioral effects, they talk about to where we are more predispositioned to have problems with substance abuse and substance use throughout our lifetimes. And when we're exposed, it starts showing up sometime after we're exposed. Generally, while people were on base, they come up and it affected them. But for the reservist, we were back home and doing our duty here in our hometown when the effects started hitting us, because we were only there for a short amount of time. I was there for 49 days, but you only had to be on the base for 30 days to be affected and start having ill health effects.
According to the PACT Act, anyway, that's the only way you can get benefits in the PACT Act is if you were exposed at Camp Lejune for 30 days.
Well, that's actually not under the PACT Act. That's under the Janie Ensminger Act. Okay. As far as what's under the PACT Act doesn't cover, reservists that are in now and things along those lines. But if you've been to Camp Lejune for 30 days, you should be able to get into the VA for health care on this. If you're showing the neurobehavioral effects as outlined in their own clinical guidance. But our problem is we can't get in the door so they can look at our records. So we're totally shunned. We're kept out of the VA. And I'm kind of reaching out about that because the VA claims that they're here to help the veterans, especially with their mental health care. Well, we are veterans. We're seeking that mental health care, but they're keeping us closed out of the system with the rules of you had to have 24 months of active service or 6 months of a deployment. And they keep us out. We can't even get our foot in the door. And that's why I'm speaking out, because this is a set of veterans who aren't getting to access the VA healthcare when they're entitled. And see, we all show marks in our record books, whether it be for marijuana use, excessive alcohol use, things along those lines. There were a lot of people that were tossed out of the Corps at Camp Lejune because they had problems with their neurobehavioral issues, and they got tossed out of the Marine Corps under a medical. But then they can have that turned over and get into the system, whereas a veteran like me cannot.
Understood. Yeah.
This group, and not to mention, I do have an honorable discharge. I fulfilled my time and my contract with United States Marines.
Yeah, I mean, that is just a travesty that you're getting this kind of runaround. And
and it's just not me, and it's throughout the system. They famously have cut reservists short from deployments and things like that, so that they don't get the VA healthcare.
Oh wow, yeah. I mean, they that's something that's that's a tale as old as time with the military. I mean, they'll cut anything short as long if it means them saving money and paying you out. I mean, it can't be much in comparison, but when I was in the Navy, I mean, after 30 days out to sea, they have to pay you family set pay, but they would always bring us back in at day 29, and of course, what you're going through is so much more extreme, but it is the MO of the military is to save as much money as possible and cut it where.
Oh, of course, and they have to stay in the black. They can't work in the red. So we know that there are people cut out of the system for one thing or another, especially for financial basis. They make too much to get the VA healthcare, and people like Ken King, the lawyer we're speaking about, he makes too much money, so he can't even get into the system, even though he may have the 24 months active service or even more. And he still does. He can't access the system because he's like me. He doesn't have one of the diseases on the list, but we do. We have the neurobehavioral effects, but they're not recognizing it. And also, the VA has not been trained. All of their people have not been trained in this toxic exposures, so they don't know what to do.
Absolutely, I understand.
And I find that to be, I don't know, just a travesty.
It is.
The fact
exactly what it is. It's awful that you volunteered, and there's supposed to be promises made to you for your volunteer that if you are injured or exposed to anything toxic that is life-changing, that you're supposed to be taken care of after that, and things there are these loopholes to not fulfill that promise being made, and it is I can't think of a better word. It's travesty.
Yeah, it's a travesty. I mean, it's ludicrous. How many other adjectives do we need to use here? But that's the motive. Well, that's the way the VA operates. I mean, that's their MO.
Well, I know that.
Yeah, and but this certain segment of veterans that I'm speaking about are just not even allowed to get into the system so that they could look at your record books or even look at your medical files from when you were in, but because we're a reservist. And they are straight up about that in any benefits office. I know guys that have been told by VSOs in different offices that they couldn't file a claim because they were a reservist.
Mm-hmm.
And that it should not be either. All a person has to have is 30 days in the United States Armed Forces, and he has a right to file a claim.
Just man, I just want to touch base on like what type of chemicals that these people are getting exposed to. There's things like trichloroethylene and perchloroethylene that people are getting exposed to, and these are chemicals that were found in the dry cleaners that were at Camp Lejune.
Yes, they were found in the dry cleaners, also in the degreasers used in the motor pool and by all the mechanics and stuff.
And these chemicals that were dripping got into the groundwater, and now people were drinking this water. showering, bathing, cooking with it, and not to mention the vapor that seeped up from the groundwater that was coming in through the foundations of the homes, and even just on hot, humid days. I mean, it is Camp Lejeune. It gets hot. It
gets nasty.
That humidity seeps up, and everybody's breathing this stuff in through the water. And then there's also the tanks from the wells.
Well, now when you said something, you said leaking into the water, okay, or
I'm quoting Ken King on this.
Or dribbling in the. No, this was an all-out. The water just went straight to the underground, especially the diesel spills that they had down there at the base for so many years.
Mm-hmm.
They have found a 15-foot plume of fuel setting on top of the underground aquifers.
Wow.
Now, personally, I wouldn't want to drink my water from a diesel tank of a tractor trailer or something.
No.
But yet at Camp Lejeune, that's what happened to us. You might as well have just grabbed a gallon of diesel fuel and drank it.
Yeah, not to mention the actual effects on pregnant mothers and all of the children that were killed because of this toxic exposure. The mass grave baby heaven that is there at Camp Lejeune, that it will bring you to tears. Photos of it will just shock you and leave you speechless. That mothers with children, twins, triplets, even all dying, all being miscarried because of this toxic. And
they are slowly dragging their feet right now on taking care of us. They are more than dragging their feet. We haven't seen the first offer or the first settlement yet, and probably won't for another 60, 90 days.
60.
And I don't know how many have died since, just of friends that I know and the people I can count, 4 or 5 in the time that the bill was signed. Mm-hmm. And that's not counting the thousands of others that are out there that have been exposed to this stuff. It's just like we were sitting there drinking the water off of a landfill that was pouring down the side ditch. You might as well have been. It's disastrous.
It is.
That's what happened there. Lives are still being lost, and they're dragging their feet. The DOJ are dragging their feet, and they need to get a move on.
Mm-hmm. Lives lost, lives changed. So, and we have to remember there are some effects that can be worse than death in some of these people's eyes, because you have gastrointestinal issues. People can't eat or digest food properly anymore. And
that was me.
Yeah.
I mean, I got down to about 120 pounds. I'm 6'2", and I went from
6'2".
I went from about 195 down to 120 pounds. Had lost all of my fat. Was depleting bone tissue and muscle tissue at that point, just to stay alive. The doctors couldn't figure it out in all of the areas that I went to, even going to Duke University. They couldn't figure it out. They had no idea why I was not absorbing my food. And this stuff about killed me.
Yeah, and then
by God's grace, I'm still here and living.
Then you have some veterans who are actually going to seek medical help, and the only explanation that some doctors have is, "Oh, you must be a drug addict," because the only people who have these gastrointestinal issues.
Well, guess what? If they are a drug addict, Algorithm B even states that people of this group of the people that were exposed, as far as the neurobehavioral effects, that they will be more prone to the use of heroin and cocaine throughout their life.
Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty sad.
And even the people who don't you use that, even though they do become more prone.
But they're still predispositioned, even though if they're not users.
Yes, but even if they do not use, they exhibit the same symptoms of heavy illegal substance users. And so that leads to hospitals labeling veterans as drug users, even if we don't use drugs.
And that's the worst thing to do. I mean, if you're trying to provide the guy with the proper mental health to help pull him out of that situation, you don't keep him out of the VA and say you can't get in. I mean, it's a wonder that some of the reservists in this situation haven't been some of the people that's went out in the parking lot and killed themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I know the number of times that I got turned down in this, and the thoughts had crossed my mind. Well, we can't help you. I needed medical care, and basically I needed one medication because it's almost a salvation to me. It's hydroxychloroquine, the very medicine that they touted about helping for give Donald Trump a hard time over.
Right.
That's a life-saving drug for me. It helps keep my diseases in somewhat of a remission state. They still flare, and even at this point, my lupus is still flaring up some.
Mm-hmm.
And, I don't have anybody in my family that has lupus. I mean, why have I got it? I shouldn't have it. And my doctors say it is clearly directly connected to Camp Lejune.
Mm-hmm. And of course, it would be hydroxychloroquine. That would be.
No, as a matter of fact, that helps me a whole lot.
Yeah.
I'm in bed I'm in bed unless I have that medication.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the VA won't give it. It is probably one of the most politically charged medications out there because it is so closely related to the pandemic and how it was a fraud and it shouldn't be used. No one wants it used in anything now, it seems like.
Yeah, well, there's a certain exception it's made, and that's for those of autoimmune diseases.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the medications that they found very helpful in the inflammation in the body, and hydroxychloroquine helps hold the body, the inflammation in the body down, and that's a change of life for a lupus patient as to whether they're in bed or whether they're up getting some of their daily chores done.
Right.
That medicine is the difference between being able to walk or not being able to walk. And, I've used it safely for many years.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thank God that I'm getting it and I thank God that they found out what I had, because when they find out what you got, they can start treating it. And back in the first part of my sicknesses, they had no idea what was going on. And so I couldn't receive treatment early on because they didn't know what to treat me with.
Yeah. You were saying earlier before we got on here that you had some updates that you wanted to give everybody. And what is it you want to share?
I guess about the update is that we're getting ready to have a rally in Jacksonville, North Carolina. It's going to be at the intersection of North Marine Boulevard and Western Boulevard at 497 Western Boulevard. We will be meeting there on the corner and gathering together just to stand up for Camp Lejune, to speak out, see if we can get a little bit of media coverage and just speak out about that they need to hurry up. They need to get things moving. People are dying.
Mm-hmm.
People are coming down with stage 4 cancer. And you got 6 months to live sometimes is what the verdict you get. Start getting our people in there and looking for different things and helping them out. Don't keep them out of the system. Help them out and give them the medical care that they desperately need.
Mm-hmm. And then, that cancer, along with the issues that this toxic exposure gives, like we were saying before, gastrointestinal, digestive issues and everything, it is damn near a death sentence.
Yes, it is. And back to the subject. I'm sorry we got off of it. Rally at Jacksonville, North Carolina. We're going to be about 5 miles from the main gates. The reason we gather at this one intersection, it happens to be the most heavily traveled intersection in that town. And so we stand up and reach out. We try to get the media involved to help us out, and just to kind of keep the news going about Camp Lejune and letting people know, hey, what's going on? I mean, everybody in Jacksonville knows.
Right.
The reason we go there is just as a support team. You know, you come out, you meet people that are going through the same things, you know, leukemia, end-stage renal failure and stuff like that. And that lifts your spirits. It helps you see that you're not the only one fighting these battles.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And that's one of the main reasons we have the rallies, but it's also to stand up and show that, hey, we got poisoned. Let's, you know, we're just saying, you know, telling the truth. That's what it's about, is telling the truth. And, you know, if you keep quiet, nothing gets done.
Absolutely.
So we plan on to keep making noise. Right.
Right. And it is absolutely amazing and commendable that you all are standing up and you are making such a loud noise about all of this happening, and that you're actually demanding answers. And it's you know, you're a person that I really do look up to, and I can't wait to see what else you do. And if you ever need any more help with getting the word out, you let us know here at the Logbook, man, and we'll let as many people know as we can.
That's okay. That's what we need. We need more people reaching out. Mm-hmm. And this might end up getting cut short here a little bit because my battery's going to die somewhere in here.
Okay. No problem. So just one thing. We just want to let everyone know that you can find that information for that rally that you're having on your Facebook page.
Yes, you can find that on the Facebook page. It's the Children of Camp Lejune Water Contamination. You know, we've got people coming in from all over. Got people coming in from Texas, Kentucky, Florida. Well, no, nobody from Florida, but Georgia, South Carolina. They come back because it's ground zero. It lets them come back and see how the base has changed, and then turn around and just see some of the sites in the area and how much it's changed and grown.
Oh, awesome. Well, I'm glad you could be here with us tonight, Curtis, and that you could share with us. The Boots and Heroes Dinner and Dance will be April 22nd, 6 p.m. at the VFW Post 8790 right here in Houston, Texas. April 29th, the Peel for Purpose Festival in Magnolia, Texas starts at 1 p.m. Check it. Also on the 29th of April, the Children of Camp Water Poisoning Rally in Jacksonville, North Carolina. Remember, show up if you can. Curtis, our guest tonight, would really appreciate it. Last but not least, we have Vet Fest, Harbor, Oklahoma on the 20th of May at 10 a.m. I'd like to thank you all for tuning in tonight. I hope you enjoyed the show. Remember, like, follow, share, all your friends. Make sure they get all this information and they can help us out as well. Good night and God bless.
Let me be the first to congratulate you on a job well done and call you a United States Marine. Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name. Do solemnly swear. To support and defend. The Constitution of the United States. Against all enemies. Foreign and domestic. And to bear true faith. And allegiance to the same. That I will obey. The orders of. The President of the United States. And the orders of. those officers appointed over me according to regulations and the Uniform Code of Military Justice. So help me God.